welcome to my living room. Today I am starting my fall brassicas, and I thought I would take you along while I do this and talk about a little bit about fall, a little bit what I learned during summer, and all that jazz. So these are my seed starting trays and cups. I've got, if you didn't see my spring setup, I like these reusable, I think they're 2.5 inch little cups. And then I do a 2-layer tray system. So I've got this first layer that has holes in the bottom. So you might be able to see some of the water dripping out. And then a second tray that does not have holes in the bottom, so I can bottom water everything. And I filled these outside and gave them a good dose of water and then brought them inside because it is very, very hot out and I do not want to be filming this outside. So yeah, I'm only doing 2 trays and I'm actually not even going to set up my grow light system. I'm just going to put them back out on the porch when I'm done here. So that's that. What are we planting? Cauliflower, first up. A lot of these things I have never grown before, and so I'm very excited about that. I've never had the space. Last year I did a fall garden and it did okay. A lot of stuff I just didn't plant early enough in the fall, so it grew really, really slow, and then spring hit and it all bolted. But this year we are getting started earlier. In fact, come on, I think I may have talked about this in my last video that I was planning to just direct sow everything, and then I realized that, like, you know, all these packets for like cabbage and cauliflower and broccoli say start 10 to 12 weeks before your first frost, and that's last week. So the garden is not ready for these things, so we are starting them, and that should be just a-okay. We'll see. Again, it's the first year, so everything is an experiment. Hopefully we have a good long fall so that these things can really grow and really get done. I did, the rapini I had in did okay through through the spring, but then it just, like, it was bolting before I could even get it to a good size to harvest it. So, and I think that's the case for a lot of these cool weather crops down here in the south, and you'll hear a lot of people talk about it. It gets too hot too soon for anything to really grow all the way in the spring. So I'm hoping that the fall will do really well for me, and then I can just plan on harvesting these items in the fall, and if we get things in the spring, bonus. The only thing that I do consider a fall planting that will go through to the spring is garlic, onions, probably leeks, those things that like to overwinter. So, or really onions, you know, you want to plant in, I think, like January, late December, January. So that I've got some time on, but yeah, so we're gonna get these started early here. That's a lot of seeds that I just put in there, but that's okay. And go. I think in the last video I mentioned that I was planning to put like the onions and garlic and whatnot in the corn bed, And I think I'm actually changing that plan. I think I'm going to put the brassicas there because, like I said, onions don't really go in until January, or at least that's when I'm planning to put them in. You could probably, I guess, plant them now and get a winter harvest. But for that reason, then that gives me more time to let the okra keep going, because it's like the only thing I have out there that's not showing any signs of slowing down or stopping. So we like that. But so I think I'm gonna put the brassicas where the corn is now, and then the onions and whatnot will go in the okra, which will also be good in the spring because, you know, the onions will come out in the early spring, but okra doesn't need to go in until it's, you know, really quite warm out. And so that will give me some more time to have the onions in before something else needs to go in that bed. So that is the plan there. I'm really happy with the okra and how that worked out, and having the melon below it. What I don't think I'll do next year is also include the peppers. Now, the peppers in that bed did better than the peppers that were in the tomato beds, but still quite small, still much less of a harvest than I was hoping for. So I think we're gonna change that up next year and put peppers in different places. Thinking about doing peppers in the grow bags. The corn in the grow bags did not work at all. Just not enough. They just all tipped over, and I don't think I had enough close enough together for them to support each other, and it was a whole hot mess. And then they started to get sick, and I just tore them out because nothing was going to happen with them. So lesson learned. I know that people have done corn in grow bags, but it just didn't work for me. And so I'm not really going to worry about it all that much, because I've got other places to put corn. A couple of things that I don't think are going to make the grow list next year are noodle beans. They are very prolific. They are very fun to grow, but I just never used them fast enough. And some of that is my own fault, just not kind of prioritizing their use and, you know, learning. Yeah, we'll do one more. Kind of learning about how different ways to use them. I think they're really cool. I definitely will grow them again when I have a larger garden. But right now I just kind of wish that I had more green beans to put in the freezer. And I've heard that noodle beans do not freeze well. And I can believe that because they have a much more mushy texture than other green beans do. So I think we're going to skip the noodle beans next year and just do normal kind of snap beans on that trellis. The other thing I will probably skip next year is pumpkins, which is sad. But again, it's not that I'm never going to grow them. It's just that when I have as little space as I do now, which granted is a lot of space for some people, but they take a lot of space. I think I have like 2 pumpkins out there right now, and they're really small, and which, I mean, I grew a small variety, so that's not the problem, but they take up a lot of space, and I'm getting a low harvest on them, and pumpkins are easy to find and get. So I can get, you know, pumpkins locally from farmers to can pumpkins and things like that. So that's probably going to come off the list until we have a bigger space for them to sprawl. So noodle beans, pumpkins, maybe melons, maybe not. I'm on the fence. They are so much fun to grow, but it's kind of the same thing. They take a lot of space, but they did work really well underneath the okra. So I might do that again because I don't really know what else I would put under the okra and maximize that space. So they may get a second life. They will probably stay. And then I might put peppers in that bed where the pumpkins were this year. One tray done. So in here we've got cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, broccoli, and the start of the cabbage as well. And then we'll start on this tray. Another thought I had this morning, I'd be very curious on your thoughts, is doing some determinate tomatoes. So I've only ever grown indeterminates, which will grow as high as you let them, right? And support them. But I was thinking about, because the peppers didn't really work well in front of the tomatoes, just kind of trying to think like, okay, what else could I put in these beds to utilize that space? You know, there's about a foot and a half of space in front of where the tomatoes get planted to trellis. And so, obviously, definitely herbs are an option. I thought about doing determinants in front of the indeterminates and seeing how that worked, or also doing determinants in some of the grow bags, because I definitely want a lot more tomatoes than I got this year. I still got a lot of tomatoes, but just not as much as I would like to put up and kind of, you know, freeze tomato sauce and salsa to give away to friends and family to eat fresh, things like that. So I definitely want more tomatoes next year. Surprise, surprise. Who doesn't? What else do I want more? More beans. I'm gonna put beans on one of the trellises out there. I'll probably hopefully get that done. Which cabbage was that? Hold on. In hopes of getting like one last harvest before the freeze. But I really like having green beans in the freezer, especially through winter, and so I really want more beans next year to put up. So yeah, I feel like our zucchini amount was good this year. Cucumbers obviously struggled, but that I don't think had anything to do with how many I planted, and everything to do with the shade tree issue that we had. So next year I will probably do a similar amount of all of that, and we should be fine. I think that's everything. I'm trying to remember what I wrote out. I kind of journaled my thoughts about what I learned this summer this morning, and so now I'm trying to kind of remember. But I think that was pretty much everything. Just, you know, big things like pumpkins and whatnot are just not going to be worth it for me right now. They're not worth it, right? Like, everything is perspective. For some people, the pumpkins might be the most joyous thing they could grow, and in which case they should give an entire bed to grow those pumpkins. That's just not the story for me. Tomatoes are my most joyous thing to grow. Well, I shouldn't say that. I really do enjoy growing new things and trying new things. You know, that's why I grew pumpkins and things like noodle beans and whatnot, but until I think I have more space to give them so that I can get all of the food I want to put up, right? Like, one of our big homesteading gardening goals is to put up food and provide food for us and people that we love. And right now we're kind of in that experimental phase of trying new things, right? Like trying to grow pumpkins, saying, hey, what happens if I put okra and melons in the same bed? Trying things like noodle beans that you can't find at the store, or the Armenian cucumbers that we have, stuff like that. And so right now, while we have a small space, or I shouldn't say small space, we don't have a small space, smaller space than our kind of dream end goal is, I want to make sure that I'm focusing on, you know, that first goal, which is putting up food for winter and providing for us, which means less trips to the grocery store, you know, more fun experimentation, learning more about food preservation and canning, all of that. And so that then when we have a bigger space and I can grow things like noodle beans and pumpkins, I have the time and the knowledge for that. Sorry. Also, I am one of those people who puts a tag in everything. I know some people are not. The first year I started seeds, I just did the whole, like, this entire row is one thing, so I'm just going to put one tag. And then things got moved around and I didn't know what was what, and it was a whole mess. So now I just put one in every single tag, so that if for some reason something has to get moved around, it's not a problem. Oh, I only needed 2 more. And then I save these and reuse them. I have all my spring ones in a bag and I'll reuse them again next year. I reuse them. I write on the other side and put them out there. So that's, oh, that's not what I wanted to write. Sometimes we make mistakes. Happy accidents. I'm also starting some kale and some collards just to kind of give them a head start as well. I will probably also succession sow some of these. Angel loves collards. He is a good old Southern boy like that. So we want a lot of those. And I'm just, while I could direct sow these in a few weeks and be fine, again, I don't have the time right now to go out and rip everything out and amend all of the beds and all of the bags. And so I'm just giving myself a head start with some of these things that take a little bit longer to get going and that I know for sure that we want. You know, things like radishes that are fast, or rutabagas and things like that, that will be fun, and I'm definitely excited to grow, are not as high priority items to me as the cabbages and the kales and the collards and things like that, that I know we're gonna want, that if I don't grow them, I will be buying at the grocery store. So that is why these are getting prioritized. I didn't want to do a ton. I just did these 2 trays. And then like I said, I'll set them back outside and they will get going. And then in a few weeks, we will get them planted. And the next video will hopefully be me bringing you along as we reset the beds and showing you how I'm doing that. So if you have any advice for amending raised beds or grow bags for fall, please let me know. Absolutely curious to see what has worked for you. And yeah, any additional thoughts on kind of the things I mentioned for next year? Make sure I got all these covered up. If you have experience with determinate tomatoes, maybe something that you thought of that I haven't thought of to put in front of the tomatoes. So this year I did beans, which did okay. And I did the peppers on the one side. I think the peppers just got, because of the side of the trellis they were on, they just got too shaded from the tomatoes on the trellis. And that is what I'm guessing is the big problem, aside from also fertilization. So think we're gonna separate the peppers and the tomatoes next year for sure. Maybe try some determinants to get some more tomatoes. Who knows? I definitely want to start some herbs next year. I didn't really start any this year. I planned to just kind of direct sow them, and they just had a really hard time getting going, and I'm not entirely sure what the deal was there, but I think to give myself a head start to get those really big basil harvests, those really big cilantro harvests, things like that, I might try and start some seeds inside. So that's that. I probably rambled a lot in this video. How long is it? Oh gosh, I'm gonna have to cut some of this probably. But in this tray we have some Napa cabbage, red cabbage, 2 different types of collards, and Ragged Jack kale. And so I will also direct sow some other kales, but those are the ones I wanted to get a head start on. So that is my start for fall. I'm gonna go put these outside, eat a quick lunch, and then it's back to work for me. I hope you're having a great week.